All right.
And we're live. All right. Have you been, Matt?
All right. I'm in my bedroom
You're in a
upstairs
new place.
because it's really hot downstairs in the garage where my office is, and
Gotcha.
I thought I don't want to do it up there. Here I've got uh,
I see
AC
that.
and it's on, so it's nice and cool in here. Um,
Mine is also on. So listen, let me know in the comments if the AC is too loud on your end. But like, it is also quite hot here,
yeah,
unseasonably hot in Vancouver.
yeah,
I'm assuming close to Seattle, it is also unseasonably
yeah.
hot for you.
It's actually not really hot. I mean, it's nice to walk outside. It's not super hot,
Right.
but I don't know. I was doing a little bit of work outside, setting up uh, my newest toy,
Okay.
because I had to put the wires down all the way around the backyard for the Landroid robot mower.
I thought we were talking about bicycles. You've got another new toy. Okay. You've got
Well,
a robot mower.
see on
Killbot. You also have a child, right? Is this child safe? I hate to jump
yes,
immediately to
yes,
that. Okay, okay.
yeah. So on
Do you put a
Sunday,
rope around the child as well?
well, on Sunday, I started mowing the lawn, and I hadn't done it in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
The HOA is
and
going to come after you. You got to be careful.
it's awful. And since I only have the real mower, it
Right.
has you're pushing the blades, and it kept jamming up. It's like I really should have done this last week.
Oh, you're talking about the manual one that just
Yeah,
the.
yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
because I thought it would be cool.
Right.
Dumb idea.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
and so I was pushing that around, got stuck a bunch of times. I thought, why am I doing this? I'm going to get one of those robot mowers. And so yesterday it arrived. So Sunday ordered it, Monday it arrived, and
That's pretty good.
yeah, it was awesome. But then I was out, and so I started putting down the stakes yesterday, and finished that today. And so now the robot mower is doing its thing outside.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I'd assume it can sense essentially where it is in terms of the perimeter, so it doesn't leave it.
It is nowhere near as smart as the indoor robot vacuums.
Oh, like a Roomba. That's exactly what I was
Yeah,
thinking. Yeah.
yeah. There is no automatically sensing which room it's in. There's no mapping out the
Okay.
whole thing.
I think if your mower is in a room, there's a problem, though, right?
Yeah. No, all it knows is it in within the boundaries of the wire.
Okay.
And so you have to put down stakes holding this wire down all around the perimeter of your yard, and not around the perimeter. Perimeter would be perhaps easier. It has to be like 4 inches in if the out edge is at the
Okay.
same level, or 10 inches in if it's a little bit of a like a step up. So,
Gotcha.
and it as soon as like the center of it goes over that wire, it knows, okay, I'm at the edge of the property.
Fair
That's
enough.
fine. Except, well, one of the problems I've already experienced is that if you're in an area with a lot of grass because you haven't cut it in a while, the
Right.
wire is a little higher than it should be, and it gets cut by the lawnmower.
Oh, so then it's free. It's like
And then
liberated itself.
then there's no wire on around the boundary, and it senses it and says, "I don't know. I don't know where I am. I'm just stopping."
I guess that's good. Like fail safe is good.
Yeah.
Fail to stop is good. Okay.
And then also, if it gets to the edge and then it tries to turn, but on the turn it slides somehow in out of bounds, then it says, "I don't know where I am," and just gives up. It doesn't back up. It just says, done.
Oh.
And so I have to go out there and move it again.
Yeah, I guess both of those seem like safety features. I'm also wondering if do you need to go around with a weed whacker later to sort of do the trimming,
Yeah,
which you'd normally do on a you normally do on a mower anyway.
yeah. So
Interesting.
I wanted it to be just like it does, and then it's not. Normally when I do it, I do the lines. And
Yeah,
then,
that's what I was gonna ask
and then
about the
you
pattern. Yeah, what does
and
it
then
do?
you do maybe a little bit off angle and do the
Yeah.
lines that
So it
way.
looks fancy. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice. This doesn't do that. This does like uh, the first few runs across the lawn, it looks like it's drawn like a Union Jack because it's like all crisscross. Um, a Union Jack drawn by somebody drunk. Um, and so there's all these lines like but eventually, I'm sure that after a bunch more runs, it will all even out and it'll just look good.
Interesting. Yeah,
So,
I'm also interested in the performance of 2 week old grass because when I was younger, the way I made money was cutting people's lawns
mm,
because that's what you do where I was from. I'm sure it's the same in America, but basically just going around with your mower, cutting people's grass, that kind of stuff. And I guess I prided myself on being able to do a good job, right? Like doing
mm,
the edging, that kind of stuff. But also, it's very hot, very sweaty work, and it
yeah.
takes hours depending on the person's
Hmm.
lawn that you're mowing. So I can understand, like, especially for a larger lawn, it would be great. But what is the battery runtime? Like, how much
So it's about
surface can it cover?
45 minutes or so, the
That's a
battery.
pretty good size lawn. Yeah,
Yeah.
assuming it's going in a normal state. Yeah.
And it doesn't, at least so far, because it's really long, it's going along and then backing up and doing it again. And then
Ah,
and so it has to work harder for my lawn right now. It should be
right,
easier going forward.
right.
But um and so it's it's gone back to charge 3 times while still not quite
Okay,
finished.
okay. So it does know where home is. So it has some
As
sort of map.
long as the wire is connected all the way around, then
Yeah.
it knows. It doesn't really know where it is. It will when it gets to like 10% power, it will go along until it hits the wire, and then keep the wire on its right side and just follow the wire around,
Ah.
and then eventually finds home because
Okay, I mean
oh
that's kind of like a naive algorithm, but I
yeah,
can see that being a little bit easier to code
yeah.
than the pathfinding or what have you.
So it's
Oh, that's pretty smart. Yeah, I was going to ask, like, can it leave
yeah.
on a schedule, or yeah, if the battery is
So it
exhausted, can it go
automatically
back?
comes up with a schedule.
Okay, okay,
And it asks you, is your water is your lawn watered like a irrigation? So we've got
right.
irrigation built in, so it just pops up and does the sprinkling every morning, and um, and so it checks. It waits until about 2.5 hours after that watering is done because
Ah,
it gets a little bit wet as well,
right.
and as soon as it feels that when it's wet, and then waits 2.5 hours and then starts mowing.
I'm trying to think of the pros versus cons, right? Like, what? How am I better than a robot? So one thing is, I can mow a lawn in the rain. I would prefer not to, especially if there are
Yeah,
hills because it's quite
yeah,
dangerous. You'll slip
yeah,
and cut your foot.
yeah. Um, yeah, I don't mind. I mean, because the lawnmower I use is not. There are no electronics on this on the mower I
It's
own.
fairly safe.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah. I could do it, but I think isn't there a reason not to? I mean, I thought you don't mow it when it's wet.
I think it doesn't cut right either. It kind of like mulches the grass as
Yeah,
well as what some uncle told me when I was younger. I don't know if it's true or not, but it kind of just chews at it. And you can kind of look at it. It looks like it's torn as opposed to cut,
right, right.
which maybe I know when it comes to botany. Again, I wasn't great at biology, but I think cutting it with a sharp blade is
Yeah,
better for regrowth generally
right.
than just like
And the
chomping at it. But
blades on this thing are really interesting.
really,
So you flip it over.
yeah,
Normally a lawnmower. I mean, the real mower is like this kind of uh, helix of
right.
blades, not really even blades, just bits of metal that as they hit the the flat edge, that's what cuts it. Um, and normally a lawnmower has these, big blades, and there's
Right.
like a
Just one
bunch of
blade
blades,
generally. Yeah.
or one blade. Yeah, well, it's one blade, one like big fan going around. But this thing has a 7 or 8 inch disc
Okay.
underneath, and that disc has 3 or 4 blades on it, and each of the
Interesting.
blades are like 1 inch, like they look like razor blades, like safety razors.
Oh, like a lint remover thing? Have you ever used one of those, an electric lint remover? It's just a
Yeah,
blade
yeah,
with
I
like
think
little
so.
cuts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
So they're like 1 inch long by about maybe half inch wide,
Oh,
and they might swivel a bit, And this is going around, and I think they might have the blades on both sides, so the thing might go like that.
Oh, almost like a food processor. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
It's out there
So
making salad. Okay.
yeah, so yeah, that's the it's a Works Landroid medium, and kind of cool.
See if I can grab a link to it. Works Landroid Medium. We're trying to grab links when we mention
Oh
this,
yeah, it's a
but I
good
always
idea.
forget.
So WORX
Ah,
Landroid. And there's like a small, medium, and large, and the small is like $950. The medium is, so small meaning 1/8 of an acre, medium is quarter acre, and then large is half acre.
wow.
And our yard is 1/10 of an acre, if that.
That's pretty good though. Yeah, one can only dream in Vancouver at least. And I'm from a place where we had 100 acres, so mowing the lawn was like a
Oh god.
3-4 hour process, and that was just one like hour plot of
Yeah.
land on this family farm kind of place.
Wow.
But it took a while. I listened to a lot of bad music, regretful life choices when I was younger, but like a lot of Lionel Richie when I mowed the lawn.
So you
I know
say
Dancing on the Ceiling. Yeah.
that's the only one I can think of. Yeah.
Which one?
That, what was it? Say You, Say Me.
Say You Say Me is pretty good. Yeah, definitely.
Can't think of anything else by him.
Dancing on the Ceiling is the one that I remember.
Ah, yes, okay.
Definitely child of the 80s. So what are you going to do? But I like what you're talking about in terms of the home repair stuff. Like I feel like I'm getting at that age now where I don't yet have a home, but I'm starting to think about maintenance and things like the brush your teeth kind of stuff outside of the bodily functions, but the world around me. What is the toil that I need to deal with on a regular basis?
Right.
And I'm pretty bad at like executive function. I don't know if it's like neurodiversity or ADHD or whatever it is, but it's hard for me to get excited about doing some of these things. And something that came up recently was like I had a flat tire on my car when I came back from the city. I didn't even know. It was just sitting in the garage flat. And I went to drive it and drove, hopefully not on the rim, but drove it up to exit the parkade and realized this doesn't feel right at all. At all. Like I had already gotten up a floor. And I thought, no, this isn't right. I'm going back. So I hopped out of the car, had a look. Sure enough, it was flat. I told a friend about this because I was going to call a tow truck and get them to like air it up, and then I'd take it to the dealership. And he looked at me like, no, you're gonna put a donut in your car. Like you've got a spare, right? There's no reason for you not to use the spare. And I was like, well, I gotta jack up my car and put it on. He's like, yeah, that's how you put the spare on. It was hot here, and I was thinking it's gonna take like half an hour, 45 minutes to do this. And he's like, no, it's gonna take 15 minutes. We're gonna go to do it together. Come on, let's go. It's like, come on, sucker, let's do it. And it got me thinking, like a lot of these things that I think are harder, it's just because I haven't done it before. Like I've loosened the nuts on the wheel when we had to change it on family trip kind of thing, but that's it. I'd never jacked up the car or even like rummaged around in the back to find those like manufacturer's tools that they give you that are terrible to use it. And sure enough, it took maybe 17 minutes. Like I didn't clock it, but it was just over 15. He was absolutely right. And it wasn't a lot of work either. Like the tools these days, I think, are a lot better than they used to be. The jacks are a lot easier to turn. Turn up. We're not on the side of the road either. We're in a parking lot, which makes it easier. Solid ground, that kind of thing. But it got me thinking about that sort of, and similar to the robot, the build versus buy, or the toil versus automation, and sometimes the mental calculus that we have for this stuff. I also went out and got some IKEA furniture lately. We've been kind of hacking them together. When you get the right stuff, you can like mix and match parts and stuff like that. As opposed to, I actually can use like a bandsaw. I can go in using table saw, routers, all that stuff. I could build some of the stuff I wanted to, or I can build extensions to it. And I do have access to a hack space and a cheap source of lumber, but I feel like at this point in time, a lot of what I want to do is just pay someone to take care of stuff. So I don't need to think about it. And it felt to me like a maturity model for businesses as well. Like, is this my core competency? Do I want this to be? Like, do I want lawn mowing, tire changing, and I don't know, furniture building to be a core competency? And what I thought was like, hey, like at this point in time, I'm kind of busy, so maybe not. But actually, later on in life, like these are skills that I want to know. Like these are things that I should practice now while I'm young, able-bodied. Let's learn this. Yeah. I think there's a sense of maybe accomplishment that you get that you don't get from other things. Whereas in a business, the accomplishment is maybe not that important. But it's
Yeah.
not like I
Just
tie
need to
my self-worth
deliver.
up in it, if that makes any sense.
Right. You need to, I mean, in a business, they don't really care that you've grown as an individual and are
Not at all.
better because of it, but
No.
have you delivered more quickly?
Yes. And
Right.
there are career paths and growths, and you
Sure.
get your people business partners and HR and stuff like
Right.
that. You want to be building skills on your engineering team for
Right.
sure. But you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, what people want to know is like, did we deliver
Right.
on or before time, under budget, that kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
That's the actual goal.
I remember when I had my apartment I bought my apartment in Amsterdam,
Hmm.
um, and I wanted to have shelves built along one wall,
Right.
and I got a quote of how much this would be. It was like 3 or 4 thousand euros. I thought,
Wow.
crazy. I am not going to pay that. I'm
That's a
going to
lot
do
of
it.
money. Yeah.
And so I went to the hardware store, Praxis or whatever it was, and bought a circular saw and some other things, other tools I knew that I would need based on my years and years of watching New Yankee Workshop, and uh, and and maybe some of them BitTorrented onto my PC.
They
Uh,
just landed on your desktop, right? That
somehow,
sometimes that
somehow.
happens. Yeah.
And I bought a whole bunch of wood and carried this wood up the 4 flights of stairs to my, walk-up apartment, and set it up. And gradually, I started cutting some of the stuff and realizing, oh, I need a bit more stuff, and go back to the store and buy more things, and then realized it would be really nice to have like a table, and found like this table that I could take the circular saw and flip it over and it becomes a table saw.
Oh, nice.
And even I had a vacuum, so the vacuum automatically turns on when the circular saw starts, and then turns off automatically. Like really spent a lot of money on all these
Right.
tools gradually. But then I was traveling a lot, so I'd go off to Australia for 3 weeks, and then come home for 15 hours, and go to Dubai for 2 weeks, then come home for a bunch of hours, and go to Buenos Aires for 2 or 3 weeks, and kept doing that. And I was traveling 160,000 miles, flight miles a year, and staying at all these places for a long time. So, I would start to build a little bit of these shelves, and then, have to continue it 2 months later, 3 months later, to continue with this process. And then, when all the shelves were finally built, and everything looked good, painted it, that looked great. And then I even made my own cushions there was like this long bench that extended from
Nice.
the shelves, long bench, so the dining table kind of went up against the bench, and had chairs on one side and this bench on the other side. So made cushions which meant buying a sewing machine, learning how to sew stuff, and making other cushions for that. And after all of it was done, it took me about 4 years to build these shelves, according to my original plan. And I would say I spent more like 6,000 euros on this. And I always thought, like, if I just sucked it up, paid the guy $3,000, it would have been done in like 2 weekends,
Right.
and then I'd have 4 years of enjoyment rather than 4 years of thinking, damn it, I need to do this again. Yeah, I
Yeah, so
know.
the personal growth stuff is definitely interesting to me, and I think we've talked a little bit about mechanical keyboards before, but I feel like at some point in time, there's also things that just sort of gnaw at you as well, and that experience is something I want to avoid, where it's like you're guilting yourself into doing something that you know you need to do, but also you don't want to do because you're busy, but it needs to be done because it's there. There's like a sunk cost fallacy as well. I'm sure when you were like 5,000 euros in,
Yeah.
it's just another
I,
1,000 euros.
I
It's gonna
can't
be okay.
can't not do this anymore. I can't spend $3,000 have somebody else do this, because
Right.
I'm already $5,000
Exactly.
euros
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. I've sunk this money in, so
Yeah,
I can't stop now, sort of thing. Which is like it's a fallacy for a reason. I mean, you
yeah,
can, and if you want to just like rip the band-aid off, but yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and this does happen at work as well, where you're like you're in the build scenario instead of the buy scenario.
Right.
You're 2 years into your research and you realize,
Yeah.
you know what we actually needed was this database that already exists. Or Postgres has now added the binary handling. We had no
Yeah.
idea that was coming. I've certainly been down that path
Yeah.
before. And you wonder, it's like an existential crisis. Like, should we have a team working on this? Is this something we need? Are they all going to leave and start joining the Postgres company now that they've got expertise, or
Right.
something? It's kind of difficult, but it is.
And I remember the same thing, the same decision would happen at Datadog. You know, when
Right.
we would we knew that Katakoda was, you know, after being acquired by O'Reilly,
Absolutely.
they wanted to dump their customers, which wasn't, I mean, it's not a secret. I mean, they wanted to get rid of all their customers.
Yep.
And so I remember when Kirk learned about, what was it, Firecracker, and thought, well, we could just build this ourselves. We can like replicate Katakoda ourselves.
Yeah.
It'll be great. And I mean, thankfully, we have a manager, Jeremy, who is no, that's a stupid idea. I mean, we don't want to maintain this thing. Yeah, it was.
That is hard though, right? So I feel like I'm very good with a hammer. So if I can hammer things, I will, like if it's a screw, like can I hammer the screw? I feel like I can hammer the screw, and if I hit it hard enough, it will go in there. That kind of thing. And I just want to go around. Like, can I ops my way out of this problem? Can I automate this? Is there some sort of Raspberry Pi I can bolt to the microwave to like make it do something? Or like, is there an Arduino solution with a relay that will make this work for me? It is hard, especially if that's what you know and you have the confidence and a bit of experience where you feel like the problem is you can load the mental model in your brain and you think you can get around it without thinking about your constraints or other things that might be higher priority. It is difficult to step back and kind of look at what we should or should not be doing.
Yeah. I mean, what was it, the second or third reInvent that I went to with Datadog was the one I spoke about serverless, and that was the session where I had 2,000 plus people in the room, and it was incredible. But in preparation for that, I built some cool demo that used AWS Lambda, and and then I had the skill set in it with Lambda. And so at that point, every demo I built with Lambda because there's this tool that I know. And when it came time to build the back end for the Learning Center, well, let's do it with serverless because that's the tool I know, even though it's probably not the right choice. But hey, I know it. And so I just leveraged that.
Do you find that you still build demos for a lot of stuff? Because when I talk to other people, at least in our community, some will use the same demo with little wrinkles. Some will see what they can find in the community. Others will port or talk to their team, kind of thing. But I'm still very much for some reason, building things a lot for each. Even just a webinar, I'll build something and leave a GitHub trail along.
Yeah, I mean, when it was still at Datadog, I was probably relying on the same demos, although I was doing less and less of the evangelism thing because it was more on the training, and on the training side, I was doing so much of the back end development for how the exams got graded and all that type of stuff. And so I kind of gotten out of the speaking and demos thing. But now at Infra, I don't really need the same demo because, I mean, our product is all about making it really easy to log into your Kubernetes cluster and be able to onboard new developers and have them easily access. And the demo that gets done is really, okay, let's grab a new Kubernetes cluster and add, integrate Okta or Azure AD with it so that your developers can just log into that and now they instantly have access. And so the demo is building from scratch, and that's what's really cool is that build it from scratch and it takes about 2.5 minutes, and it's awesome. So I'm now in a place where the fact that I don't have a demo prepared is actually really good because it shows how easy this thing is to get up and running.
Yeah, I can see that being a bit liberating for sure. it feels like every time we have a new integration or a new
Yeah,
partner or something like that, maybe there's a new
yeah,
wrinkle, something else is released, just now ARM instances or something like
right.
that that you need to worry about. But I'm constantly thinking of like newer ways of looking at things. And yeah,
Mhm.
it would be nice. Like Kubernetes is kind of great in that it's fairly common. I won't say like everyone's using it, but it's common enough where if they already understand Kubernetes and showing them how something works within Kubernetes is like a known area. And also, I feel like I know how to build up a Kubernetes cluster pretty quickly. Let's say 20 minutes before the fact, kind of thing,
Right.
assuming like the slowest cloud provider using
Mhm.
like a managed service. But in terms of the effort on my part, yeah, I think 2 minutes is all it takes to spin it up and then make sure it's actually happened, which is nice. But that is a luxury, and it's not always the case. Sometimes it has to be VMs or different operating systems or different like multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. Those kind of
Mhm.
scenarios get complicated, and it just feels like this. I thought about what are those wheels like? Is it Price is Right where you're spinning like three wheels and they have to match up, or maybe this is just a slot machine. But I feel like if
Yeah.
you've got three
Well, yes.
APIs,
Yeah.
yeah, and like three different API providers, and you just spin them and
Right.
see like which ones. So it's like
Right.
Twilio, Datadog, and AWS. Go. Like, what would this look like? And every time it feels like I'm spinning those wheels, and it just those combinations it just seems endless.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
always some new wrinkle.
I mean, I another example is, have you ever seen the writing dice?
No,
Um, and
sounds
so,
great though.
or writing prompt dice or something like that, as
Okay,
story dice. So you can buy these sets of dice, um, and they're just regular, slightly bigger dice, um, and they have words, different words, and so you shake it up, roll it out, and there is your. If you can't think of a story to write, there's your
nice.
story. It's the boy sits on the plane, something like that. And it's got this simple thing. It's like, oh, there's my story. And I've seen these dice for all sorts of things, and so you could have the same kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we need like
That's the
Alibaba,
demo.
Node.js, and Redis.
Yeah,
Go.
AWS versus Google versus Azure versus whatever.
Exactly, maybe on-prem or vSphere
Yeah,
or what have you.
yeah,
Exactly, and then some programming language because of course,
yeah.
and then
Oh yeah,
some sort of
yeah.
something with state, so some sort of
Right.
database or a caching layer or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. This is fantastic
that'd be awesome.
because that's what it feels like. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I don't know if I could live stream something like that, but
yeah.
like, watch me pour over the docs while I figure out how to run. Is it Vue? Like I don't know Vue, for example.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how to write a front end app
Let's
with
have
Vue.
an hour and a half live stream on building out this demo. I'm going to spend the first hour and 25 minutes reading the docs.
Absolutely, and the rest of it's a scaffold that makes a
And then,
form.
yeah, I'll
Perfect.
crib a demo from somebody else. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. It does feel like that though. Something similar to that is maybe like the training required for this
Yeah.
role is being able to think on your feet about a demo that can do
Right.
stuff like that. So I
And
think
being
about
able to
forms all the
know
time.
and being able to recognize when you need to just give up and find a
Absolutely.
demo that, if you can't build it yourself and you're running out of time, know when is the time to find something, because
Definitely.
somebody
I,
else.
I will say a lot of vendors have teams similar to ours. And if we're working together, I'll say, hey, I found this repository. It's not exactly what we need, but can I fork it and add some stuff
Yeah.
to it? And sometimes they don't come back or like, hey, that's Matt's work. You can't use that. Like it's on GitHub. I don't know. I think I can. Can I talk to that?
Yeah.
But I've certainly forked and changed and modified
Yeah.
things before, saying like, here's the original. Like
Yeah.
we forked it for this demo kind of thing. This is
Right.
what we're doing. But anytime I can get a head start is better because I am seemingly going through this on a regular basis, and I'm trying to figure out like what I can reuse for sure.
Right.
Like people ask me for topics, like can I use something that I did 2 years ago, a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
Do the slides just need updated? Screenshots, videos. What can we get away with?
Yeah.
But that again, the build versus buy, like there's that calculus, like what is the value of me building something new? Probably pretty low. It's good for me,
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
but it's for the team. It's probably pretty low.
Mhm.
Or is if we're coming up with a new way of running, let's say a workshop, maybe at a summit or a
Mhm.
internal conference.
Mhm.
Is this something that I should take something that we've already got that's maybe on a website and deliver it in person, or make it whole cloth, or figure out if the vendor's got something? So
Right.
that's honestly that's what I'm doing a lot right now
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
preparing for Dash and trying to figure out like
Yep.
vendor workshops,
Yep.
and how that works. It's always fun, but luckily with bigger partners, they tend to have examples. So that's what we're doing this year.
Right. Yeah, I know. I mean, there's been a few companies that have had, whole GitHub repos filled with demos that show
Right.
here's how to use our product with
Right.
all these other things. I always think of, I think Elastic had one that it's just here's how to use Elastic with product X, where X equals
Absolutely.
60 different options.
Yeah.
And it was that was off of their Elastic / whatever off of their org. And there's quite a few companies that have their demos. And
I'm thinking of Confluent, for example, has really good Kafka ones.
Yeah.
Always impressed me.
Yeah.
But in this case, I'm working with Microsoft. They've got something called What the Hack, and it's actually pretty impressive to see what some teams can come up with. Like a small team of 5-6 people to start, and you've got a lot of little sort of hack environments that you can work through, and it's good to be able to see what else is out there.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I'd be building my own, and it wouldn't even come close to just all the wrinkles that they thought about.
The problem with that kind of resource from a company like Microsoft is that you'll find that set of resources, but then you'll dig a little deeper, you'll find the exact same set of or similar set of resources made about 5 years ago by a different team. And then another set that's probably 12 years old. And
we came across that a couple times, or they're pointing to a repository for the sample app that they're deploying, but the link is no longer valid because the branch name has changed. It is hard when the companies get larger, and even Datadog, I'm sure we suffer from this problem now, where we're so big we forget that we've already done this. It has already been done 3 years ago. We're doing it differently now, making sure that we're doing we're not like keeping things out there too long. I guess deprecating open source projects is hard, I guess, as a practice. Deciding when you're going to cut the ties and say, hey, this is archived, we're making a new one, kind of thing. Which Microsoft is pretty good at, but still you'll run across something that, is 5 years old.
Yeah.
It happens, especially in the .NET space, which is what this is for. .NET has gone through a lot of iterations, it seems like to me, in a short period of time.
Right.
And some of those iterations, so they're generally compatible, which is great, but making sure that when you load it up in Visual Studio, for example, not Visual Studio Code, the real deal, making sure that it compiles and gets all the environments set up, that kind of thing is interesting. And that's one of the other issues that I've had is like Visual Studio versus Visual Studio Code, because a lot of newer projects will expect VS Code as opposed to Visual Studio.
Yeah.
Which is
have you spent much time with Visual Studio recently? Like Visual Studio, not code, but Studio.
Yeah, specifically for this, I have actually, and it's got some really neat things on both actually, Mac and Windows. Yeah, and the experience is pretty cool. It reminds me a lot of those really big IDEs. So I think I've talked to you about JetBrains before, or like Rider. It's sort of their .NET version, or something like maybe in the open source community, something like Eclipse. So like a large IDE that's got many plugins. It's made to do a certain thing.
I mean, I know I keep meaning to try it out because I have a full, I don't know what level, I like pretty high up version of Visual Studio that I get for free because I'm Microsoft alumni and I keep paying the $100 a year to be alumni since I worked there for 5 years.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
I would suggest that it does some interesting things, especially in the monitoring space, where you can load up the code that you're running in a function, for example, or an app service environment, attach to it, and give you something like process monitoring all the way into your IDE. And I feel like that proximity of something like the cloud's over here, but I've got the stats locally in the IDE that I'm using to debug it, and I'm setting breakpoints in the cloud. That's a pretty powerful paradigm. When you see it working. So I like that kind of developer tool that gives the monitoring, like it gives it some immediacy because it's right in your IDE. I like that. Yeah. Especially as someone who's like more deploying code and debugging code prior to prod is like a release manager in the past. I can code, but I'm not great. I'm pretty good at debugging. Like I'm not bad at it. But in terms of coding, like whole cloth, starting from scratch, not that great. The system design is more on the infra side than it is in the code. So having a tool like that, being able to visualize what's actually happening with things like your heap, like how much memory am I using per thread? So every time a new thread comes in, how much is that adding to it? Where it's not obvious to me, or it's not written down, it's not documented. Being able to run through those steps and see it immediately is actually pretty powerful. And not to talk about Datadog, but like the same sort of thing. It's like when I can deploy something and get that immediate feedback loop, it's good.
Right.
Like I put a donut in my car and I could immediately drive away on it. This like instant gratification. Took 15 minutes. I did sweat a bit. My shoulder's still a little bit sore, but I think it was worth it. I could use a workout or two. But that kind of thing. Same thing for the IKEA building. Like instead of buying something prefab that just came in through the door, and IKEA is pretty easy to build, honestly.
Yeah.
It did require some elbow grease, but like it felt good. I felt that I was doing the last mile, of course, but it felt good to be able to say, hey, I built this desk that my laptop's sitting on.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've got plenty of, I don't know, actually, do I have plenty of IKEA stuff still? I have a few bits of IKEA stuff.
It feels like one of those things, right? Like once you've grown out of it, you're a real adult.
Well, so Stella's dresser that's in her room is this piece of IKEA furniture that I actually bought in IKEA Delft, in the Netherlands.
Interesting. We get YouTube feedback. We violated the community guidelines. I wonder if this is actually true or not. That's kind of interesting. I wonder what we talked about. We're generally pretty good at
community guidelines.
Not running afoul. So for those of you watching the live stream later, maybe we just got a live YouTube feedback here saying that we violated the community guidelines of YouTube.
Yeah, what's that mean?
Maybe we shouldn't be talking about IKEA and building your own furniture.
But IKEA
we will dig into this and figure out how we run afoul of it. But it looks like perhaps the next stream might not be on YouTube, but elsewhere. Very interesting. Is it legit? Did it come up on your channel as well? Interesting.
No copyright. Nothing there.
Interesting. It could also be spam. Where they're trying to get you to click through and do something. Sometimes that happens. Where the font that they use for the name is actually in some Unicode that looks legit but isn't.
Yeah.
Very interesting. This topic is pretty top of mind though. So it happened to a friend as well who was talking on, I think it was Instagram actually, and talking about religion in like honestly a favorable way, but still talking about religion on some of these channels, or talking about maybe diseases that are spreading and things like that. You have to be really careful because they do crack down pretty quickly. But yeah, I think we try to keep it pretty PG here. Maybe we can ask them what happened. Let's see if we can beg for forgiveness here.
Yeah, I'm curious about where this came from. I don't see it.
It does say misinformation is what we've been accused of saying. Maybe we misquoted the price of your bicycle last week.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
Have you been watching anything or listening to anything that we should know about? Any takeaways before we get kicked off the air?
Like the picks. Are we? I don't know. I started watching Sandman.
Oh, excellent! That's on my list.
Yeah,
and
I never followed the comics or anything like that before.
Right.
And I have a bunch of Neil Gaiman stuff, but I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan.
Okay.
I think I just listened to the Neil Gaiman Tim Ferriss interview a few days ago, and that he mentioned Sandman was coming up, and now of course it's out. So
so he's doing his little publicity tour or what have you. Tim Ferriss would be one of the stops. Yeah,
part of that. Yeah.
Tim Ferriss is a pretty big podcast, right? Like a lot of people listen to it. Okay.
Yeah,
I've
listened sometimes crazy, but it's
okay.
I mean, he recommends some supplements and stuff, but it's
you see, we got to be careful.
Yeah,
YouTube's gonna come after us.
Yeah. That's weird. Misinformation.
Yeah, it's quite odd.
Yeah,
I would like to watch Sandman. I was wondering, Sandman is on my list for sure. I was wondering about Game of Thrones. Have you started that at all?
So
you have not?
I've watched most of. I mean, I guess I've watched all of Game of Thrones. It's the like prequel that's on now.
It seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely interested in checking that out.
Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of new music as well. I don't know if you're
Oh yeah.
down with indie music recommendations, but
Sure. Yeah.
are you? Yeah. So Taylor Swift. Have you been listening to that new album? Popular indie artist Taylor Swift.
Uh-huh. I, I I wouldn't.
So real talk. My recommendation would be the Bets.
I
Have a new album. Knees Deep is the latest single. So they're a New Zealand, I would say like a pop punk band, but very much on the pop side. And a lot of falsetto, a lot of upbeat sort of
Mhm.
indie punk kind of feel. But the best, that's Beths. Would highly recommend is like a feel good, upbeat sort
Oh
of.
yeah.
Maybe you're biking on your Specialized over to Seattle. It'll get you like above 120 beats per
Yeah.
minute kind of stuff, which is nice to get going. But
Hmm.
I've been enjoying to see sort of the resurgence, I guess, of what punk was, but like now, so it's kind of like 90s punk has become this new sort of like sugar pop punk kind of thing on the side,
Uh-huh.
which is actually kind of enjoyable in my old age. Less raw, guttural, but more palatable, which is great. So I can listen to it pretty much anywhere without
Yeah.
causing listening too much. And then I've been listening to a lot of Cindy Lee. Have you heard of Cindy Lee before? Cindy Lee used to be in a band called Women, who are a Canadian kind of supergroup. And
Uh-huh.
Cindy Lee kind of spun off of that when they broke up. And it's very, I would say it's almost experimental music, but it's quite good.
Yeah.
And the sound specifically it's almost like, for some people, this could be like an earache or like ear
Mhm.
bleed, but I think it was Chad Van Gillen, I believe, who did it, but they played it on one boombox and had another boombox record the album in a cement room. So it
Mhm.
has a very weird echo tinny kind of sound to it.
Huh.
It's very interesting. But I'll leave some links so we can find
Yeah.
it. But yeah, I thought those two albums were pretty good, and they're pretty much on repeat on my end. I just kind of like going through them over and over and over again. It's
Right.
sign of a good album, I guess.
Yeah. I can't think of any music that I listen to at the moment. What am I? I mean, I think most of the time I'm just listening to podcasts. I listen to
Really?
so many podcasts. Um, like recently, it's been a lot of Shane information. What's of course, I just have it. I set it up on. I use Air for my uh, podcast player, and
Right?
which is neat because if you tap the right button, it will make an annotation as you're playing it.
Nice.
Um, but let's see, The Knowledge Project
The
by
Knowledge Project.
Shane Parrish,
Nice.
I think, and then also Brett Fisher's podcast on Docker and Kubernetes. Another
Nice.
great one. Yeah, so many.
Just writing these down here as
Oh
well.
yeah, notes. That's a good idea
Yeah, well, I
for
let's give it a
the
try.
for the two people that watch, including
Yeah, exactly.
I keep,
Including the YouTube censors.
yeah. I mean, I can't see anything about if this is real.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. If it didn't come up in your account, I would assume it's just spam. Something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Which is
Let's
weird.
see.
How would they be able to do that?
Yeah, it's a tough call.
Huh.
So other than that, I went over to the studio yesterday and played around, I guess, with the A10 MIDI. I meant to bring this up earlier. Sorry,
Oh yeah,
the YouTube thing kind of threw me off. I got my timing
yeah,
all wrong too.
yeah. I know.
We
I
did
mean,
our checkouts early by mistake. My
yeah.
bad. But we were playing with the A10 Mini, and one of the things that he wanted to do was split screen,
Mm.
which I didn't realize was possible. So we figured what we could do. We grabbed a frosty beverage and plugged it in and sort of set up like two Fuji cameras as well as his iPad, trying to figure out what we could do
Uh-huh.
where.
What
What
was
he's trying to
this with?
do, pardon me?
Who was this with?
A friend of mine, Merlin,
Oh,
who
okay.
runs a studio locally, he works over at HP. But yeah, we were just sort of, putzing about in the studio to figure out what we do. He does a regular podcast on Instagram. But
Hmm.
the thing with Instagram is on the iPad, it's not a native iPad app.
Right.
It's one of those 2X apps.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of white space. So when he would do like an OBS or something like that, you could do side by side, but there would be a black border all over
Right.
it. It's kind
Right.
of a mess. the nice thing about the ATEM is that you can kind of scale one side to the other.
Mhm.
It's in one sense it's kind of bad in that they don't have a scene for side by side like we're doing right now. Like
Right.
it's just not built in. On the other hand, if you want to make your own, you certainly can.
Right.
And they now, I didn't know, but the GUI now has it, which is nice. So of course our contact Aaron Parecki had a video on how to go
Mhm.
through this and set it up. So we watched that
Mhm.
and got it running. But it is pretty neat. So
Yeah.
because it's not exactly the full screen, it's sort of
Right.
like a 60-40 split
Okay.
as opposed to side by side, which is actually even better for what he's
Yeah.
looking for. So it worked out pretty neat. But it was nice to see someone going through the ATEM software and the
Right.
Blackmagic website and the
Right.
whole, because the setup's a little bit, I mean, once you got it all done, you just plug in the USB cable and you're good
Yeah.
to go. But
Yeah.
the setup is rather particular and particular to the Blackmagic ecosystem. If you've not
Yeah.
used Resolve before, if you've never downloaded Resolve, you don't know what downloading from Blackmagic is like.
Right.
And it's a bit of
Yeah.
a chore.
Yeah.
So you download the update to get the software, for example, whereas all you want was the software, but in order to get it, you had to download the update. Just
Right.
like whole, it's like a nomenclature kind of thing. And
Yeah.
in the release notes, it does say this does include the most recent version of the software, but nowhere in the download page does it say that. So you click in like 3 times.
Yeah.
And then of course, once you get it, there's a whole, like there's some stuff you can go over the network. There's some things you can do over USB.
Mhm.
And like which ports will go into which when you're talking about picture in picture, like what does it map to? And of
Right.
course, it was mine, so it was set up to do all my stuff, which is why
Right.
I'm on the webcam today. But like I use input 3, for example, so that I'm never live on one because that's what it defaults
Right.
to, and I'm always worried. Who knows? It's COVID time. Maybe I'm still in my pajama bottoms, kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, it was interesting to see someone go through that new user experience. I guess was the takeaway for me,
Mhm.
and that maybe sometimes I forget what the new user experience is, not just for our product, but also like other things that we do all the time, not knowing
Right.
that, oh yeah, this is kind of muscle memory. I just
Yeah.
know that it does this. I know that you need to do
Yeah.
this and then this. You have to like arm the audio track and then put it
Yeah.
live. You don't just select it. It needs to be
Right.
read, that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I thought it was pretty fun. And now we've got, so funnily enough, we were at supper and he found one on Facebook Marketplace and the person came to him and
Oh.
sold him at a pretty good deal
Uh-huh.
a Mini Pro. So we've now got
Okay.
3 Mini Pros
Okay.
amongst our circle of friends, which is actually
Uh-huh.
pretty cool. So I talked to him a bit about Restream and our TNT and
Right.
things like that,
Right.
and it looks like he's on board. So it's
Wow.
another video producer.
Yeah. Cool.
And you're
Yeah.
on, is it the ISO or the ISO Extreme that you ended up going
I
with?
have the ISO Extreme.
Lots
And
of
it's,
buttons.
the main feature for me is, being able to record. I guess the one of the things that made me get it was just the headphone jack. It's like the only one that has a headphone jack.
Right.
Or I guess the Extreme and Extreme ISO both have the headphone jack. And then also I like the ISO because all the inputs coming in all get their own dedicated recording when you press the record button.
That's pretty massive.
And so now I can like do all the things, record my video with the teleprompter and the demo and all that, and then bring it into Final Cut and edit down to a good video, and it's all there. I've run into problems recently with just trying to do that with log footage rather than normally I'm using something that looks relatively pretty.
So like ungraded, I think is
ungraded, yeah,
right? Yeah,
and it does something weird, but maybe I just wasn't doing it right. I don't know. It wasn't well lit. But generally, that's a great workflow, and that way I don't have to. I record to a SSD that's on the back of the ATEM, and then when I'm done, go grab a drink of water or something, come back to the computer, and then just FTP, not FTP. It might be FTP.
It might be FTP. I was noticing that on the network.
Off the disk, straight from the ATEM, straight to my machine, and it takes because it's a gigabit Ethernet connection, it doesn't take that long. A few seconds to copy this big file off, and then I can start editing right away. So I don't have to, go to the back of the camera that's
right
behind a teleprompter and like kind of imagine where the card is and pull it out. And then,
Visualize it.
yeah, just like,
Coordinate your fingers
okay,
backwards from
here,
the way you remember it.
pull this
Yeah.
one out, and then plug it in, all that, because it's all just right there on the, I just all over the network. It's a magic.
Yeah, and I can only imagine like recording the cards and then importing all the cards and then trying to
Yeah.
line them all up as well.
Yeah.
Is there a time code between them when you're doing it? Like they all have the same time code,
I think so, but I'm rarely doing a demo because usually I'm like talking directly to the camera,
right?
and I'm not doing the demo at that point, but then I'm going to do the demo afterwards, all as part of the same recording. But if I was, then because they all started at the same time, I could just, line up all the videos that way. Or I think they all have some sort of audio recorded with it. And the Final Cut's just like magic for matching up the audio just built into
Oh,
it.
really?
Oh yeah, it's like
Okay.
on Premiere you always used to need plural eyes, which
Yeah, there was a
really
plugin. Yeah,
I don't know. Did they eventually buy it? Or anyway, so
not sure.
all that kind of stuff is just built into Final Cut, and it just works perfectly every time. Yeah, I haven't really had to worry about that much. The thing that I do sometimes mess up is sometimes the ATEM forgot the how many frames the behind the audio is versus the video, and so I have to reset that to be like 4 frames behind. I'm not sure which way is which, but either audio has to be 4 frames behind the video or the other way around, because otherwise it just looks weird and I have to redo that. But now that seems to be doing, I've saved it into the ATEM. So, one of the weird things about the ATEM, if you make any changes, and it's a change that you want to, persist, you have to make sure you click that save button, or save menu option,
Right.
to ensure that it persists.
That's a good tip. I've certainly done stuff and had not
Yeah.
had it stick between them, and I didn't realize why, but maybe I'm missing that.
Yeah, there's a menu
because it seems to work live, which
Yeah.
is nice. So,
Yeah.
and I generally leave it plugged in all the time. So,
Yeah, I'm never sure whether I should just, leave it on all the time or should I turn it off. I mean, I end up turning it off.
yeah, I'm the same here. Like, I don't know. Should I
Yeah.
leave it on? Should I leave it off? The lights are a bit distracting, but not that bad. I'll figure
I mean, I just have a Stream Deck on the side that is hooked up. So the Stream Deck's, we talked about this before. Stream Deck's going to a Raspberry Pi running Companion, and Companion is controlling a power strip under my desk where each power socket is individually addressable over the network. And so I turn on and off the ATEM, and then the other things that are on that strip are my the dummy battery for the Panasonic camera, the power supply for the universal audio interface, the power for the teleprompter, the power for the all the things. So I just like press all the buttons and everything comes on, and it's magic.
That's awesome. It's like your pre-flight checklist.
Yeah.
Check them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of the same way, but like a lot of mine is via like the home app or something like that. I've got them all on each individual thing. So it's honestly a bit of a chore.
Yeah.
I think automating it. This is again like, should I build my own system? Should I bring the Raspberry Pi? Or
right. Yeah.
Because I think ATEM, if you'd ask them, they want you to get the whole, was it the hyperdeck, and then like everything should out. Yeah, this rack mount sort of thing, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's also a little bit spendy.
Yeah.
So listen, while we were talking, I pulled up the community guidelines. I'll send them your way just to make sure that we haven't run afoul of anything.
Yeah.
I don't think we've done anything. We can ask them to please have a look and review. I think we're probably upstanding citizens here, but we shall find out.
So.
But I think that's it for me. I'm not sure if you had anything else, any other topics you want to broach or.
No, I can't think of anything else.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's see how we do with YouTube, and hopefully we can stream
Yeah.
again next week.
Yeah. Sounds good. Alrighty. Talk to you later.
Bye, folks.
Bye. And broadcast. Move away, Mac menu. There it is.